Level 1 youngin', new blood. You're 13 years old, alone at midnight, on the darkest street in Compton. A streetlight flickers yellow, faint, as if it too has grown tired of this neighborhood. You have $5 in your pocket. Your mother is sick at home. She needs surgery. You have no insurance, and you've been waiting in line at the welfare office for 3 months. The kids in red bandanas standing on the corner are watching you. They're not much older than you, but their eyes are years older than yours. One approaches slowly, no rush, as if he already knows what he's gonna say. Big homie sees you. There's a job. One time only. You already know in that moment it won't be one time only. But you also know the sound of your mother's cough. And next to that sound, this man's offer almost makes sense. You shake hands. Not blood. Just palm to palm. But this touch, from that moment forward, will be the most significant handshake of your life. No contract you ever sign will bind you as tightly. The initiation ritual in the Bloods isn't like the Triad's 36 oaths or blood-drinking ceremonies. Here, the contract works more quietly, more deeply. Loyalty, silence, keeping your questions to yourself. Your task is simple. Watch, carry. Stay quiet. They call you Shorty, Level 1. In the first week, you learn one thing. Wearing a red bandana on the street isn't fashion, it's a coordinate. It says who you are, which block you belong to, who stands behind you, and this color, born on Piru Street, starting in 1972 as a neighborhood defense against the Crips, is now becoming your color too, whether you want it to or not. The first week ends, the money comes. Small, but real. You buy your mother's medicine. As she thanks you, you smile, but something bends inside, because you know where this money came from, and you can never unknow it again. Level 2 soldier. 6 months have passed. Now you read the street not like a book, but like a map. Which blocks the Crips control? What time the police patrol? Which store is a safe house? Which car has a camera? Which neighbor watches from the window? This knowledge moves you up. The higher names take notice. They give you a 38. It feels heavy, not just physically. When you first hold the metal, your hands tremble. You feel it, but you show no one. That trembling is now a part of you too. You have to bury it inside yourself. The first real test comes a few weeks later. A man owes money not to the set, to someone else, but a message needs to be sent. You and 2 others go. The only thing you're told, stay ready. You look into the man's eyes. Those looking eyes holding fear, desperation, the act of shrinking tear you apart inside, but your face stays stone. You don't hit the man. But your gaze is enough. The man steps back. His hand trembles. The money comes within 3 days. That night you can't sleep. You stare at the ceiling, the man's face appearing in the darkness. You understand that frightening a person is this easy, requires this little. And that easiness is what frightens you most. In the morning you look in the mirror. Your face is the same. Same nose, same eyebrows, same mouth. But something inside your eyes has disappeared. You can't quite name what it is. Maybe guilt, maybe innocence, maybe just a kind of softness, and that softness won't let you survive here. The upper ranks introduce you to the OGs. This kid is cold-blooded. It's a compliment. Everyone standing there nods, and you nod too. But inside, a voice asks, "What are you paying to be cold-blooded?" You're not yet ready to answer that question even for yourself. Level 3, OG, Original Gangster. You own the block now. 5 people report to you. Each of them manages their own people below. Money flows cash, irregular, coming through various channels, appearing nowhere on paper. To launder it, you open a beauty salon. The idea is simple but functional. $200 a day in real income is entered in the register. $3,000 appears on record. The accountant asks, "These numbers don't add up." You smile. They don't have to. The man has already learned not to ask more. Money laundering doesn't stay limited to the shop, a car dealership, a few rental houses, a freight company. As the structure expands, it grows more complex. And that complexity becomes both the source of your power and your weakness. Because now you can't manage it alone. You're dependent on people you trust. And trust in this world is the most expensive currency. But you also know this. You're a gear in this system. If the gear breaks, you break too. An OG told you this sentence years ago. You understood it then, but couldn't internalize it. Now, every morning you wake up, this sentence sits like a pain below your stomach. You notice that at night, your phone never goes quiet. A shorty got caught 15 years old, carrying 2 bags. First time. The family is calling, the mother is crying, the father is threatening, the sister is pleading. What do you tell them? I'm sorry? You're not sorry, or you've repeated not feeling it so many times. You no longer notice. You just tell them you'll send a lawyer to the door. You hang up the phone. You hold it in your hand for seconds cold, black, silent. Then you set it on the table. Life goes on. This too is a lesson. Level 4. Set leader. Now you speak not just to the street, but to institutions. You decide together who to support in municipal elections, not a ballot deposit, but a mutual balance of interests. The elected man invests in infrastructure in your neighborhood. You contribute to his campaign through channels that can't be directly traced. He looks official, wears a tie, takes notes on his smartphone. But he takes an envelope every month. And we both know the man who takes envelopes can no longer make decisions independent of you. There's a police officer, your relationship with him is even more nuanced. He doesn't actively protect you, but he closes his watching eyes. Not a bank transfer at Christmas, cash, but one day, he'll call in the debt. You know this too. The mathematical reality of this world. Everyone's moment of reckoning comes, and you learn that someone inside has been leaking. No name, the source is unclear. But the information was right twice. Someone is talking. Some people inside the set, maybe 5, maybe a circle of 2, are exchanging information with the police. Now, at every meeting, every shared meal, behind every glance, you carry this question. Is it this one? And this suspicion is the most dangerous weapon. It destroys a structure faster than a bullet from outside, faster than trust rotting from within. You look into the eyes of the men you once felt safe to turn your back on, but differently now. A calculating gaze, distant, less human, more strategy. And when you notice this transformation, at night you feel a loss, even if you can't fully name it. This loss sits in a deeper place than anything you left behind on the street. Power isolates. No one told you this. Or did they tell you and you just didn't listen? Level 5. OG Godfather. Legendary. You're no longer in the field. You sit in a room. A plain room. Not luxurious. Bare walls. Functional furniture. Displaying wealth means making mistakes. Drawing attention means sending an invitation. You learn this so early it feels natural now. Decisions flow from you, but your hands appear clean. There are enough links in the chain between you and the act. But you know this. There are no clean hands in this business. There are only hands hidden more deeply. You've been alive for 30 years in this. That alone is a statistic. Reaching this duration inside the bloods most often ends one of 2 ways: prison or grave. You escaped both either luck or instinct, or the narrow passage exactly between the two. Everyone around you is either inside or in the ground. Some of those inside will get out, but they'll come out different, broken, compliant, surrendered to the system. Those in the ground will never return, and their stories over time transform into legend, their truths erased, and myths written in their place. Your closest friend left 15 years ago. Betrayal or accident, you still don't know. You learn to live with that uncertainty. You accepted that certain knowledge isn't always possible in this world, that sometimes living with questions is safer than forcibly finding answers. But that acceptance never fully extinguished the pain. Today is your granddaughter's birthday. The little girl comes running, opens her arms, wraps herself around you. Her hair smells wonderful. Her laughter hasn't yet come to know the world. Her eyes curious and clean. And in that moment, under the weight of more than 30 years, you feel genuine fear that she might grow up with your eyes, that she might see what you've seen, that she might be forced to learn what you had to learn. This fear is unlike any you felt while surviving out there. Pure, defenseless, completely human. You've passed through all these levels, from level 1 to level 5, from Shorty to Godfather. But now stop and ask yourself, what did you gain on this journey? And what did you leave behind? What was there where you started? And how many of those things are still with you? The historical framework of the Bloods forms one of the most bitter irony pages in American social history. Founded in 1972 inches South Los Angeles to defend the neighborhood against the growing Crips gang, composed largely of black youth, this structure over time turned against the very communities it harmed most. The Bloods, originating from the Piru Street Boys, grew rapidly alongside the crack cocaine epidemic of the 1980s, an organization that exploded in the exact center of the poverty brought by federal economic policies, inequality of opportunity, and systemic discrimination. Today, they are estimated at between 15,000 and 20,000 members, spread across 33 states. The red color comes from Piru Street's original color. Contrasting with Crips blue, this color over time transformed into an identity, a sworn oath, and for some, the only concept of family they ever knew. And this is precisely the heaviest truth of it all. For many young'uns, the Bloods was the first place they ever truly felt they belonged somewhere. The first place someone ever watched their back. The first place they were ever seen by anyone. This is not a glorification, not a heroizing of every person who entered this life. This is a mirror held up to both this structure and the system that made it necessary. And what you see in that mirror speaks not just about streets. It speaks volumes about justice, poverty, community, and abandonment. Keep asking questions, even when the answers are uncomfortable.